That climax in the elevated parking garage was not in the original script. It was a bit of inspiration on the part of director Phil Carlson. He spotted it while scouting locations and immediately asked writer-producer Sterling Silliphant to work it into the plot. Carlson had endless praise for Silliphant, saying he never worked with any writer as facile and proficient. The same could be said of Carlson as a director. Five Against the House was the third of 4 movies he had released in 1955, the others being Tight Spot, Hell's Island, and The Phoenix City Story. Carlson had served a long apprenticeship, making forgettable B films in the 40s, mostly for Monogram. The Chicago native originally studied to be a painter or a lawyer, but neither suited him as much as the movie business, which he sort of wandered into as a prop man in the early 30s. After earning a reputation as an idea man, concocting gags for Buster Keaton and Lou Costello, Carlson learned film editing on the fly and wound up cutting pictures for William Wyler and John Ford. Although his breakthrough to the big time came at Columbia with the 1952 film Scandal Sheet, Carlson had a rocky time at Harry Cohn's studio. He'd enjoyed almost total independence making films on Poverty Row, but often bristled under the constraints Columbia put on him. Some of his best 50s films weren't made at Columbia, but in partnership with independent producer Edward Small and actor John Payne, Kansas City Confidential, Hell's Island, and 99 River Street. For the rest of his career, Carlson bounced between studio assignments and indie productions, culminating in his biggest hit, 1973's Walking Tall. Carlson owned part of the picture, and its grassroots success allowed him to retire a multi-millionaire. When Carlson was signed to direct Five Against the House, the gang of overage college students looked a bit different. Robert Horton was set to play Brick, and Roddy McDowall was cast as Ronnie. But Carlson went with Brian Keith instead, who was the best thing in Carlson's previous picture, Tight Spot. Keith was in the midst of a run of strong supporting roles that would set him up for a long career. Columbia opted to put a new discovery, Kerwin Matthews, into the mix instead of McDowall. The former English teacher had signed a 7-year contract with the studio, but hadn't done much before this. His big breakout would come with 1958's fantasy classic, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, where he earned lasting fame battling Ray Harryhausen's animated monsters. It would also typecast him as a swashbuckling hero. Although he did make a number of non-fantasy films, Matthews' legacy will always be as the human half of Harryhausen's sensational special effects. Robert Mosley got into show business when he was spotted by the somewhat notorious talent agent Henry Wilson, who promptly renamed him Guy Madison, making him an early member of a stable of actors that included Rory Calhoun, Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter, Chad Everett, and Troy Donahue. At the time he made this picture, Madison was already a TV star, playing the lead in The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok, which ran from 1951 to 58. He was married for a time to actress Gail Russell. Alvy Moore had already worked with writer-producer Sterling Silliphant on the Mickey Mouse Club, acting as the roving reporter, teaching kids about various occupations. He became a familiar face on TV comedies, particularly as a regular on Green Acres. Less known is that in the 1960s, Alvy Moore produced low-budget horror films like The Witchmaker and The Brotherhood of Satan. He formed a production company with veteran character actor L.Q. Jones, and in 1975, they made the low-budget sci-fi classic A Boy and His Dog, based on a story by Harlan Ellison. As for Harold's Club itself, the casino was sold to Howard Hughes in 1970 for $11.5 million. By 1994, it had closed, and 5 years later, it was demolished, leaving Five Against the House as the best visual record of its heyday as a cornerstone of the biggest little city in the world. As always, let me know what you thought of today's film on the Noir Alley Facebook page or Twitter feed. Ingenious and amusing, or far-fetched and absurd? Well, either way, You got to see Kim Novak on the cusp of superstardom. Next week, I'll be back with a picture I describe as pure pulp nirvana. It's Raw Deal, a 1948 collaboration between director Anthony Mann and DP John Alton that's one of the most visually stylish films ever made. Dennis O'Keefe, Claire Trevor, Marcia Hunt, and Raymond Burr star. If you've never seen it, be advised, it's one of the essential films of the classic film noir era. Until next week, see you in the shadows.